If you knew me before, you wouldn't even look my way. If I had the nerve to speak, you wouldn't hear what I say. Time has come and gone so fast, we're not who we used to be.
And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Vince. Vince, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me over.
It's my pleasure because, one of the things that you started sort of talking about, and it's one of the things that I sort of geek about, is this idea or concept that you have to support musicians and creating sort of like a safe space, not only safe space, but also a space that's dedicated to help advance music in general. Yes. And so how did you come up with this concept to begin with?
Well, I would say I started working on music about 20 years ago, working with bands, doing the recording side, because I grew up as a geek. My parents, I had 2 computers in my house in the 90s, like in my room in the 90s I built myself. And then my mother was a musician and my grandmother was a musician, and they'd never wanted me to become a musician for reasons, because they're like, it's really cutthroat. But I went at it from the production angle, because digital audio would just start taking off. And I really wanted to get into that. I had some friends with like really good studios, like $250,000 studios back then, that got to mentor me in those kind of things. And I loved the process of making sound good. Have you ever heard of synesthesia before?
No.
So it's like your senses in your brain are sometimes slightly wired differently. Some people can like see sound. I taste sound a little bit. So like it's just a really important thing to me. And I feel like music has always been one of those things that it saved me as a kid. I had a bit of a rough childhood, and I always listened to music, and it was a stress relief. It really helped my anxiety, and it became kind of like a religion to me just a little bit. And when I got into the recording side of things, like as soon as I got my first just even one input recording device at like age 13, I would just use it every single day. I played like piano and guitar and drums and bass, and I sang a little bit. And I just got into recording myself I was homeschooled, so I had a lot of time. So I recorded myself every day through like age 20 or so, and really got into the sound side of things. And then started to meet bands. So in reverse, like everyone like goes to see bands when they're kids. I got to see bands when I was older, realizing that there was a huge need for production and things like that. And back then, I think bands were thriving quite a bit, but it started to go downhill in the 2000s. The whole entire industry itself, bands used to be able to sustain very easily back then, and nowadays they can't. Like if you talk to an act, they're like, yeah, we used to be able to, it's for everybody, the economy's just kind of going down. But bands especially, like, used to be able just to, off of part-time gigs doing like jingles, you could support yourself and have a mortgage payment and everything. It's just like impossible to do that. Even shows don't pay for themselves half the time. Sometimes tours lose money, that kind of thing. But if you're really successful, you can make it. And to be really successful, you got to be a good band, and to be a good band, you got to have like a place and a space and a community and all this stuff. And also, kind of with the economy going down, nobody has a house anymore, and nobody has that place anymore, and everyone's running the rat race a lot more. They don't have the time. And some musicians I've met are just like so into it that it doesn't matter to them. But the thing is they don't have the facilities. It's like you can be like completely homeless and dedicate your life to making music and become the best musician in the world. But if you don't have a support network to be able to like play a show or get your music off the ground or meet other musicians and work together, then you can't become successful in the industry. And I respect that musicians want to just dedicate their lives to music, because it's kind of like a religion in that way. But I want to be able to help them become successful and have a place for that. And after years and years of recording albums for bands and realizing what it was to make an album, and then seeing how that translated to shows, because I've seen bands that I've done music videos for and albums being seen by people, and obviously they're on like international tours or national tours, like a couple of them that I worked with, which is warms my heart. To be able to see that and realize that's a key factor in becoming successful. And I know so many musicians now just from working in some live venues and working with bands that are just really really trying to, I don't want to call them bottom rung, but they're not as successful, but they should be. Some of them are so good. I want to be that bottom rung in the ladder that they can climb up on, or make that bottom rung in the ladder that just doesn't seem to exist anymore.
Yeah, they bring up a good point, too, because I've been interviewing musicians now for, I would say, over a year and a half. And the one thing that I have noticed in the musical community in particular around this area is how many, I would say 95%, have a day job, because the music now, even compared, like they were making money 10 years ago, no problem, can sustain themselves. Same music, same performance, they're getting paid the same today as they were getting paid 10 years ago. And now they have to have a day job to support their music. So it's like we're in a vacuum of space available for people to practice their music, because if you have a space, like to practice, for example, now you have to pay. And if you have to pay to practice and you're not getting paid to perform, it puts this unfair barrier on musicians who are trying to make it this day and age.
Yeah, it all kind of adds, the equation's broken.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
It all kind of adds up to where, and it sucks, because it means that the only people who can really afford that are people that may not have as interesting of a life experience, because, interesting life experiences come from trials. You heard that all these people, this is a stereotype and it's cliche, but like U2's first album was great because U2 was going through a lot. And then their second and third album was like, not as many people liked it because now they had money and now their life was better off. And I probably get a lot of U2 fans mad about that, but like that's what a lot of U2 fans even said. And that's how a lot of bands, a lot of bands, you hear the cliche that their first album was better. And I feel like it's kind of related to that, because like real art comes from some like pain and suffering, and sometimes.
and I kind of have a theory behind that, actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Because when bands reach a certain point of success, they turn over the creative process to the record executives. So the band isn't putting out the same music because somebody else's hands are on that music. So it's somebody else's lyrics, it's somebody else's lick, it's somebody else's drum beat. And so like a lot of bands, once they reach this level of success, they lose the ability to record the way they want to. And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of the bands that I still love, but you can just tell the difference as soon as those record executives get a hold of it. It's
right.
Just like, what happened?
Right, they become a vehicle when they realize it's just like sequels and movies and things. You realize, hey, we could take a risk and invest in developing this new artist that may or may not make it, or we can take this one that already was successful and just ride that reputation we built and the name, branding, and let's offer them a lot so that we can use them and use the clout and everything. And of course, people are all of our psychologies run up with incentives. So how would you say no?
Yeah,
I want to be successful.
Yeah, and one of the things that I appreciate about your idea is your concept of revenue share with the musical artists, because I think it's something that's so missing in the Portland area right now. A place that's dedicated not only from a space that is built for musicians by musicians, a space that says if you're a musician and you come here, we will share all of the revenue with you as a musical artist, because you recognize, just based on the brief information that I got, without artists, there's no venue to begin with.
Exactly. And of course, like the plan is, and at least in the roundabout way to do what you're saying, in that if we can make enough profit off of things like having great shows and having people show up, if we can siphon that money that we make right back into the programs, we can offer a lot of great community rates. And if we can be, this also all comes from, I've ran businesses as a manager before and then P&L. You do have to kind of treat it as a business and do the thing that's going to make the money, which is to not compromise on quality. There's a lot of people out there that like, I just have a little warehouse and throw some speakers in the corner.
No.
And you got it. So I want to approach it like a successful, slick, amazing venue that's going to have everything that you need. That people don't realize they need. There's so many points to acoustic separation, down to the furniture that you have in the room, even, and what the material it's made out of, and things like that, and your speaker placement, and the room and the room treatment, and all that stuff. So we do have to treat it like that. We got to invest in that a lot. But anything that we can make beyond that investment, I would love to put back into the community and offering a rate that's amazing. Maybe the bands that are successful from like out of town would just love to play there, and they could pay certain rates. But the local community could have a really great discounted rate, or even trade work where they're like, I can get a band that I know is really good at songwriting to come in and say, hey, if you give X amount of hours to these other bands that want to learn from you and respect you as a songwriter, or even just teaching them what your method is to be able to emotionally stay bonded as a band. Or there's all sorts of different things that people don't think of when they hear about mentorships. Like they think, oh, a music lesson. Well, not necessarily, but like if you teach them how to be a successful band, that's different than just being good at playing the drums or whatever. Then maybe you can get X amount of time in the studio and get music videos made for you, and like an incentive program for the local community to help each other, and have it be like a vehicle that they could take that and be invested in return on their investment of time, and encourage through incentive the music community to work together.
Which kind of excites me in many ways, because I know so many venues that are music venues, but the music is an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
And just how much, like I know one venue in particular that has glass everywhere. And you try to play or and you try to listen, like things are bouncing off the walls, acoustics, like you're hearing drums to the left and then to the right, and you're kind of struggling like, okay, I'm trying to figure out where all this noise is coming from, and you like see, oh, the glass, and they don't have any acoustic paneling, and it's like,
right?
And they wonder why they can't attract better bands, and it's like, that's a big reason.
It's true. I mean, I'm glad I'm not the only one that sees and hears that, because to me that's such a big deal. It's not some people might be like, well, that's kind of snobbish, or music should just be art, but in all reality, it's communication. If you're in like a bar and you're trying to talk to a friend, and everything's so loud, or there's so much distraction, you can't communicate very well with each other. You're like, let's leave this place. And the band is trying to communicate to the crowd. I feel like that's what I love about music is somebody's experience they're trying to communicate, and have you have a shared experience. Like a great song, you feel it. Like a really sad song, you cry when you hear it. A really powerful song, you get excited when you hear it because you're connecting. And if you can't communicate, you can't connect. And if you don't have a good audio, the communication gets broken down. I want to have great communication. I want the band to have the best opportunity possible to be able to connect. And if you can't connect, then, that's the whole point of art, is to connect you with each other.
Well, and also it's like, it's also being respectful for the musicians in a way, because they put their heart and soul into creating this, what I even call as a miracle on stage, right? The idea of 5 people on totally different mental wavelengths coming together and formulating this unified sound with unified timing is a miracle, if you will. And so whatever we can do to support venues that take a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to make the music quality just that much better, it helps the venue, and it helps the musician, and it helps the audience. So it's one of those instances where it's like a no-brainer win-win. But at the same time, like you're saying, a lot of venues, they don't go that step. They kind of fall short a little bit.
And I don't know if it could be just a lack of knowledge and a lack of vision, or it could be a matter of the wrong incentives. Like, I want to make more money on my bar, or I like the way this looks, because they're into visuals more than sound. And me, I just want, to me, it's all about the ability to hear what the artist is trying to represent in their music. And that's, to me, one of the biggest deals, and one of the biggest things about a lot of the venues downtown. There's like a handful that I think have great sound, but it's a small handful, and they're a little smaller, generally speaking. And we have hundreds of great artists, hundreds of great bands in Portland.
I would say thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That having 3 or 4 great places is not enough. And also, a lot of those places, maybe 1 or 2 of them are trying to do a whole cycle where you can play and get your product that you need to be able to get more gigs, and also have mentorships. But it's like super few and far between. We could use a lot more of those.
And it's my experience too that most of those also charge their musicians to play. So it's not even those ones that have those mentorship programs. They have all of these programs assigned to it. It's not like they're paying musicians to play on their stage. It's like, no, we are this entity. We're in the community. We are here to support you. But if you want to play here, you need to pay us $3,000. Oh, and you're not going to get all the ticket sales. And so it's like, what message does that send to musicians? Because it's like, but at the same time, there's only so many venues that have more than 150 seats that you're stuck paying that. And so when you sent me your proposal, and this whole concept of like being a vessel to support and uplift musicians, I was like, oh, it's about time. And I really appreciate the fact that you're talking about how you have experience in the business side of things, because also what I see happen more often than not is somebody has an idea for a great restaurant, and then the music is an afterthought. And so most of the people that own the venues or operate or manage the venues, they're either good businessmen or good chefs. Very, very, very few are musicians who have business acumen. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate your aspect of that. And I think you really could pull it off.
Well, I certainly am going to try my best. And
Yeah.
Hence, I'm here trying to see if people are into it. Because it really comes down to is in order to make a community thing like this happen, we got to get the community on board. Because I donate over 1,000 hours of my time for free to bands to help them make music videos and get them out there. I undercharge myself all the time. I will charge myself less than minimum wage to try and make a good album happen for a band that I believe in. And I put myself out a lot, but I'm realizing that you can't help anybody else if you don't help yourself first, in a way. And I can't get any bigger than I am if I just keep doing this. I'm sacrificing myself to get a little bit done. But if I could somehow make it so the community sees how important this is, and because money has to come from somewhere, right? If we can get the community on board and want to invest into this, then we can invest into the artists. So it's really about getting the community excited about this vision. Unless there's a billionaire that just gives us $1 billion type of thing, you got to have a business. So I'm hoping to, with the quality we're able to offer, get really great bands, AAA bands, to want to play there. And we'll work out a way to maybe even circumvent, say, Ticketmaster and things, and get rid of a middleman, make it highly profitable for both of us, type of thing, because we have a name, and that hopefully we can get a name like that, like do like independent ticket sales, instead of selling a 10,000 seat stadium for $200 a ticket, which is hard for a fan to afford, and then like only 10% of that goes to the band. We could do like $70 a ticket and split it two ways. The band's making 3 times as much, and we're making enough to sustain ourselves, and we get this AAA act to come in, and people go, oh, wow, I want to go and check it out. And then we can reinvest that into the community programs if we can make beyond lease and paying for the employees type of thing,
Yeah, actually, that brings up a good thought, because one of the things, and I hate to bring up Rogan on here, but Rogan started a comedy club in Texas. And one of the things that he's done with this comedy club that I actually think is amazing is he does not allow third-party ticket sales.
It's cool.
If you want to come to his venue and see a comedy show, you have to buy tickets from the venue, and you have to will call them from the venue, and you need your ID. So that you have to be the person who bought the tickets. And what that does is it cut out Ticketmaster, but it also cut out like all of the secondary markets that siphon even more money from artists.
Scalping and things.
Yeah. And so I love the idea of cutting out those predatory companies that really take advantage of artists, because there's a lot of them out there.
Especially the really big ones. And that's a whole entire story in and of itself, is how corrupt that whole entire thing is, like where they scalp their own tickets for 100 times the profit margin or 100 times the normal cost. I mean, I've seen, and there's a lot of people that may or may not be true, but they theorize that the artists are doing it themselves sometimes for money, or the artist record company, $15,000 for a Taylor Swift ticket that's $900 because, well, they're not available now, but you can buy it from me.
And they have bot farms.
Yep.
So what they do now is they have bot farms
Sniping
that go and snipe all the tickets. And so you're waiting in line. You're thinking you're waiting in line competing with 1,000 other people for the show. In reality, you're competing with 100,000 computers who are in line before you instantaneously. Yep. And the show's sold out, but I would say probably half of the tickets, or even close to 60%, go to those scalping companies.
Yep.
And none of the extra money goes back to the artist or the venue.
It's
None
incredibly
of it.
broken. It's just so broken.
It's so one of the things I'm curious about, though, because you were saying you were back and you have sort of a words are hard sometimes. You have this background in sound engineering and sort of music production. Can you talk to me a little bit about the importance of sound control for live performances?
Oh, that brings me back to when you were talking about restaurants and not caring about the sound so much. Yeah, I've ran into that working for companies like that, and a lot of them are like, "Well, it's always been good enough," and I hate that so much.
I hate that. Good enough. Like, come on.
I want to come in 4 hours early. I'll put in my own time. Well, you can't work off the clock. Well, we can't legally let you do that. But I just want to donate my time. Well, you can make a contract for the band. Maybe like there's some loopholes, but they're really hard to execute. But to me, like there is a lot to preparing a good mix, and there's a lot to getting a good mix out. But there's also like a lot of people don't understand the science of sound and how sound takes time to travel, and how line arrays work, and how speaker placement works, and reflections work. I mean, you got to think of you got these sets of speakers, and sound travels at like 13.5 feet per millisecond, and waves are waves, and they can cancel each other out. And so placement is really important, because you get this thing called filtering throughout the crowd, home filtering, where that's how noise canceling headphones work. Is they'll introduce a wave that's opposite of the other, and because the waves travel technically really slowly, I mean sound travels fast, but it's really slow. You'll end up with a wave that's trying to amplify, and a wave that's a back wave, like the up and down of a wave in the ocean, and it'll cancel each other out over the place. So you end up with these pockets of no bass, these pockets of 4 times as much bass, these pockets where there's no treble at all, or this extremely harsh treble in the back, or towards the front of the crowd, because nobody thought about. We just throw some speakers on stands, and then that changes every single day, and nobody thought about the materials in the room, and the way that the couches are going to reflect, and the way that the seating is going to reflect the sound. And we want to have the bar look fancy, so we're going to make it prominent and all that kind of stuff, where the music is just totally not even the second, third, or fourth, or fifth thought. I have a friend that's helping me with this business plan, and she has consulted for 30, 40 of the most successful venues in America, and she's working with me. She has to help me develop the business plan, because she's done this so many times. And so we work together on that. And she'd be willing to come out, and she's got synesthesia too. She can see sound.
Yeah.
And she's able to set up these things and rewire speakers. You can change ohms in speakers just by looking at them and just tinkering with them a little bit. And you need somebody like that. Somebody like that in your venue. Almost nobody pays for that, because they think of it as an unnecessary cost. I would rather invest more into my bar. But when you are done with all those things, and you have to be uncompromising, it's not just about speaker placement, it's not just about treatment, it's not just about what the materials are in the room, it's all the things put together. When they're all put together, you end up with this thing that is so powerful that it pulls the souls out of the people hearing the music, because the sound is so good, the connection, the communication is so good, that you can, if the band is emotionally sad, you cry. If the band is emotionally excited, you feel it and you get excited, because there's nothing in the way between the band and the people listening to them, unlike horrible acoustics.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things musically is when a band stops music for a note when they're playing, and the ability in some venues to hear that pin drop versus to hear that reverberation and now that echo is night and day difference. And so just the emotional feeling you get in a really good, solid sound stage when that happens, the hair on your back and your neck stands up, because it's oh, this is different.
Oh, yeah.
And so I love the fact that you have this intentionality behind that, because it's something I'm craving for in a music venue. Was that something you sort of learned along the way? Because you sort of talked a little bit about your attachment to sound.
Oh, yeah.
But was this always sort of a passion project of yourself, or something that was just you can't let go of the sound piece of the music? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's kind of who I am, part of who I am. I I'm oddly picky about the music I listen to because of the way that it's mixed and the way it sounds. Like I'll just hear a song and be like, it's probably a good song. I can't listen to it. It's just like I need. There's like a very specific way I like to hear it and feel it. And I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, but I do feel like the things that I like are also part of the reason why other people like it and it's so popular is because it sounded so good. And I mean, you see this with pop artists; they put millions of dollars into those mixes. And, of course, it's going to translate to all the speaker systems and even a crappy cell phone, and it's going to sound pretty darn good, and you're going to feel the music. And there's a psychology behind it. I love the psychology. I love science. I love psychology. And I just enjoy sound to the point where I've come to realize that some people, not to discount art itself, but some people just love production. And they love to feel the bass, and they love the treble that's glistening and clear and clean, and you know, just a beat to dance to, which is part of the art, yes, but it's also something that I think it activates our brains. And when you put the two together, and you can have great art with great sound like that, that's when you have that entire Zen moment, like you're talking about, where the hair stands up and the pin drop. And when I was a kid, I would just buy the better headphones and better headphones and better headphones with all my spare money, because I just loved to hear all the things, and it was my drug of choice. I didn't do all my friends did drugs, and I didn't ever judge them, but I loved listening to music. That was my thing. I listened to music almost all day, every day. I'd sleep to music. I'd wake up listening to music, and making music and recording my own music, listening to my own recordings. How do I make this better? Why doesn't it sound like what's on the radio? And I would do my research and go back and learn mix techniques, and like, why does it still not sound like it's on there? It sounds a little better. And I would just do that. I did that for 20 years. I still can hear the difference between a AAA product and my product, but I know what it is now, and I know some limitations in the room and the microphones, and maybe I don't have all $5,000 grade tube condensers and a large diaphragm, but I know what I'm doing now, and that gives me the confidence to move forward with this plan, knowing that the only reason, because some people hear it, I mix professionally. I recently did a mix for a band that recorded it in the same room Nirvana recorded in, and we
cool is that?
It was really, really fun. And there's music videos that I've done that audio to that have like 100,000 views and that kind of thing, and people are like, this sound, like literally the comments are, this sounds great. And I've done live venues where the crowd hands me money because it sounds good. It's just a bizarre experience. They're like, dude, this sounds so good. I can't believe that you're making this sound good. And so it's something that I have a little bit of confidence in now, and I guess it is just a passion. It's something that's wired into me. I consider music my religion. If people are asking me what my religion is it's music, because that is, to me, how we connect to each other spiritually.
I totally get that 100%. And I've said this before on the podcast. I'm sure people are tired of me hearing it, but like, if it wasn't for music, I don't know how I would be able to communicate emotion. Because like, when emotions are high and you're going through some shit in your life, I might be losing the ability to sort of express myself, but there's a song for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song out there where somebody has been through the exact same situation or something extremely close, and they've written something, and you can send somebody a song and say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. And it saves you from having to reactivate yourself through the story. It saves you from having to emotionally process in the moment. And for folks like me who are autistic, it opens the door of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And life without music would be terrible.
Absolutely.
Terrible.
I can think of specific times where music has literally saved my life.
100%.
Because the song came on and I was feeling so low.
And it's interesting because I'm assuming this probably has happened, because I think this is almost like a universal experience. Where there'll be times where you're feeling a certain way and you're sort of down or whatever, and then somehow a song finds you
mm-hmm.
that you were not expecting, that you were looking for, that directly applies to the moment in time that you are in. And it's one of those cathartic sort of like, oh my God, where was this song been? And because like music just, to me, I kind of agree with you, like the whole religion thing, because like it's just, you can separate yourself and go on a journey without having to experience that journey yourself again. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. Full disclosure, I was diagnosed autistic in the 90s.
Yeah.
I totally get that. and ADHD and dyslexic later on. But yeah, and I do feel like that gives a certain ability to hone in on an experience like that and just kind of pick it apart little piece by little piece. I really enjoy that. Like I can listen to a song over 1,000 times, and I have to do for my profession, and I really do enjoy that. And I know that people I've been with or have been in the room with me get really annoyed with that sometimes. But
if I had $1 for every relationship that I lost because I listened to the same Tool albums over and over and over and over again.
It's true. I can relate. But yeah, that's it takes a village of people, and to me, it's a skill set. It's a certain brain, and this is the brain to do running the sound at a venue. You know.
Yeah.
And I maybe I consider it a unique qualification of mine to be able to pull this off, because when I'm in that zone and I'm mixing music, people can talk to me, and I've been at venues where people have been like right here, and I don't see them because I'm like I need to turn 4K down on the snare with like active EQ because it sounds good when he hits the rim but not in the center. Like that's what's going through my head at the moment. So that's what I feel like that if I were to have the venue, I'd probably be the lead sound engineer most of the nights. As a position, I have worked in bars my whole life, and I know how to run a bar. I've managed bars, and I can do P&L on bars. But I would want to be involved in the music at the venue as quality control over the sound.
Yeah, and the venue would definitely benefit from you being in that position too. And one of the things that I also want to talk about or highlight, if you go back to like the musical venue experience too, because if you create a venue like the one that you're wanting to create, the audience will also come. Because I think a lot of the hesitation from people that I know that would love to go out and enjoy live music in the Portland area is that it's hard to find really high quality venues that don't cost $150 a ticket. And it's one thing to have a venue that if it's $150 for a really like high top end, I get that to a certain extent. I also think that there needs to be an avenue where some bands that, you know, you'll pay $25 to see as opposed to $150. And the sound quality still needs to be that good because the audience is expecting something. And if the audience doesn't get what they sort of expect or want, they're not going to come back. And so I love this idea that you have about being intentional with the musical piece because it's so important for the audience.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you're talking about like this sort of idea that you have and sort of like the concert space, would it be like one of those spaces where they have like a recording studio and a live performance stage at the same venue?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And talk to me a little bit about that a little bit.
Oh, I would just... I always think of like the Tonight Show and stuff like that, where they have a control room in the back and everything's perfect because they have to be because they're on TV, like that kind of quality where you're holding yourself to a standard that is the best. And that's what I want to be obviously you can't always be the best, but the standard, like your goal is to be the best at all times. And if you strive for that without compromise, as in every venue that I've worked for, had people work for, it's always been like, that's good enough. I don't want that attitude. I want to be like, how do we improve every single day? How do we improve? Like, I've never not tried to improve over the last time that I ran sound. Like, what can I do better? Not how do I cut a corner or how do I make it easier on myself type of thing. And definitely I'd want to, because what I found is people don't like to listen to music anymore. They want something to watch. It's a fact of life. So if you were going to have a place that you have a great show, it would be great if you could also record the show and also offer video for the show, because that's when a band is great in that moment. That's how they get that gig in a remote location in like Arizona and 15 different cities on the way in, is because they're able to have their promoter send them, this is the band, and the promoter sends that to their booker, and their booker goes, wow, that's a good performance. And then you can set up the line, or managers. I've had a band I once worked with that some of the live music videos, because when I make a live music video, I record everything as if I'm in the studio, because that's where I'm from. I just spent 20 years in the studio. I've only done live for a few years now, and I've been trying, like ever since I started getting into live, I'm like, what can I bring from the studio side of things? Because the studio side of things is all like super delicate stuff. You have to get precise. Using like feathered compression, optical compressors, analog compressors, different types of tape distortion, that kind of stuff, all layered together in a chain. And like most mixing boards are just like a treble, a bass, a mid-range, and an up and a down knob. And I'm like, that's not enough for me because my ears, my ears have been trained to the point where I can't live with just a mixing board. I don't want to run it if I can't run it the way that I do in studio. I have to hear what I hear in my head, or it just bothers me. So I would be running it basically through studio programs, most likely like through Cubase or something with like a nice chain of plugins in every single line. And that sound quality I can translate into a video, detach it to the video, edit the video together. And I'm not great at video editing, but for the 3 years I've been working on that, with the audio mixed and mastered from the recording that I got from the show. And then it sounds almost like an album, and you can really interpret what the band is playing, and they can get those gigs. Because some of the bands I've done that for have been able to have like managers of bands in certain areas, like a 3-state area, like I think Wyoming, Texas, and Arizona. A manager saw one of the bands I worked with and made music videos, and he's like, I really like what I see. Can I get you on a 3-state tour? And they were like, absolutely. And they all of a sudden, for the first time in 20 years, have an international or a national tour now. And they're able to play for like 3 weeks, buy an RV, go out and do the thing, their dream that they've had for 20 years.
See, that's awesome.
And that's what I want to provide. Because I've seen it with my own eyes, I've done it with my own skill set, and I'm just me, but if I could expand and get the community involved, we could do this for a lot more people.
And it's one of those things too, where what it's been my experience recently, that you don't get a lot of cross-genre venues. And one of the things that I appreciate about this opportunity is sort of like cross-genre mentorship programs, because like it doesn't matter what music you perform, getting ready for the stage, getting ready for a venue, getting ready for booking, all of that stuff is something that they're not really talked about in music schools. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's a universal thing that a lot of people could benefit from, because I would argue it's one of the hardest things for bands to do, is to do the logistic piece.
Oh, yes.
Because they're artists, right?
Right.
So like they have a mindset of art, and they don't have the business mindset of promotion and getting out there. And so like your idea of a mentorship program is amazing. Talk to us a little bit about why you think the mentoring piece is so huge.
Well, like you said, it's a little out of sight, out of mind, and it's important to learn, but you should learn it as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible from real life experience. Because there's a million answers on the internet, and 999,000 of them are wrong. And
don't get me started on this podcast.
For me, I was a musician at the same time as I was learning music, and there was a point in time where I knew I was starting to play guitar so much. I felt like I could become Van Halen, or I could become a music producer. But there's only so much time in your day. There's only so much energy you have. There's so much throughput, and I had to make a choice. I was playing drums and bass and guitar and keys and singing, and the first thing was drums. I know how good that has to be because it has to be so precise. I let that go, and then I really let a lot of my musicianship go to focus on production. And then later on in life, I started to see the venue side of things, and realizing from my personal experience how much I had to let go. I would never want an artist to have to sacrifice their art to be successful. And if I could provide a way for them to, you shouldn't be ignorant, but you shouldn't have to know everything or learn the hard way, because learning the hard way is a lot of time and a lot of energy that you could have spent making a great album.
A lot of money too.
And a lot of money, exactly. If I can make it easier on you, that is lifting the local music community. Is to be able to provide them with those tools without them having to figure it out for themselves and fail over and over again, because that's how I got any good. Is I spent so much time failing at everything, because I'm very self-taught in most of the things I know. If I could have had somebody provide that for me, and some of the things I appreciate the most in my life is when I had people provide me with their experience. It made me so much better, so much faster, and realizing that if we can just make a place where you could have a higher opportunity and a higher chance to run across those little nuggets of information and be able to share that, and having bands being open, like, hey, can we talk to this band? I know that they're doing like 100 more gigs than we are, and just figure out what do they do, and can we talk to them? And then maybe I could do a trade with the band, saying, hey, this band wants to talk to you. If you can mentor them for X amount of hours every week, we'll set you up with a hugely discounted rate on like X amount of hours and in the studio type of thing, you know, and really try to, based on if we have enough profit to do that, I would love to, you know, if they look at the business is successful, and it will be, we can totally make that happen. And then that's how we can lift them up, because they'll be able to hear from real life experience in a real life venue from real life people that are more successful than they are, the exact reasons why, and at least them, you know, telling them, here's what we do day to day on a day-to-day basis to get our gigs, to get better at what we do, to communicate with each other, to make sure we're on the same page. Here's like the resources we use. Here's the calendars we use. Here's the bookers we use. Here's our method of calling places. Yeah, you're going to have to send out 10,000 emails to get 3 gigs. Don't feel bad. Like that kind of stuff, like just mentorships in the things that you it's not a music school per se, it's a life school for musicians type of thing, you know.
Which is different.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, like, you might automatically think, oh, a place that you teach, oh, you're just going to get drum lessons, guitar lessons, and piano lessons. Like maybe that could be part of it, but that's not what I'm talking about.
And I think also, too, if you're thinking about need, like, there is a lot of places to go to get music lessons.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. I can't think of any places to go to get the music education piece that you're talking about, because I think that's a huge component that's sort of missing from the conversation. Yet, so many bands I see today and ones that I've interviewed could benefit from that sort of a thing, because it's one of those, like you're saying, you know, instead of failing, because I liken it to this podcast, right? I'm on the 5th iteration of my mixer. I'm on the 5th iteration of my microphones, and all of these cost like thousands of dollars every time I go through a shift. And then, like, some of the things that I've learned along the way, right? I can't have musicians do live music on this podcast. It sucks, because the compression and everything is sort of catered to speaking. And if your mics and everything is dialed in for speaking and you try to incorporate music, it cuts off the highs, it cuts off the lows. So I'm like, I don't do that anymore, because I learned along the way. But if somebody would have told me, because like you were saying, everything I learned about starting a podcast for the first 6 months was completely backwards and wrong. Mm-hmm. And it took me 6 months to find a sub-channel or a sub-chat that actually showed, well, this is how you do this. This is, like, where the heck is this stuff? And so, like, I really commend you with this idea, because I think people can really benefit from that side of things. It's a huge gap right now.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I think it's so important to have, like, the 3 pillars that I was talking about in the business plan I had of a place that you have production, as well as a venue, as well as a place where people are encouraged to teach, because then every single aspect of at least the technical side and the live music side is at their fingertips, and they have the ability to use that as a tool. And even so much as having like a band say, okay, what do you look like on stage, and being like, see, if you it would be better if this guy was up front or whatever, or I can tell that you're not on the vocal mic right, or I can tell that the drummer needs to have more deadening in his kick drum. That was your problem this whole time with why everything sounded a little wonky. Just from experience, from seeing it on stage or getting to the production side of things, and being able to go to say, hey, you see all this stuff you could have done at home before you got to the record place to do your recordings, to the recording studios. But these are things that you couldn't do at home, or that kind of stuff. It's all in one space to be able to develop and to be able to hone in. Like a experienced band that has been successful can take a band that's not successful and analyze them. And especially if they are self-built and they didn't have, a lot of these bands, they had to do everything to get to where they are, because the record companies aren't any use anymore. They're just selling you a loan these days.
They're not there to help you.
Not anymore. At all. They don't develop anybody.
They're there to exploit you along the way.
Almost every artist that gets signed these days already has 1 million views before they can get signed, right? So they know how to do it. So they can go in and hone in on you, that new band, and go from every department of this building and figure out the pinpoint of, it's the production of your video, it's the production of your audio, it's your stage presence, it's your choice of instrument, these things are your weak parts in your chain. Let's make these weak points into strong points, and then that uplifts the whole entire music community right there. And if you didn't have all those things in one place and completely uncompromised on quality, then you can't do that.
100%. And it's one of those things where if you don't do that, the people who are coming to your venue will know that, and they may not come back.
Right. They might not be able to know why they know that. They're just like, this sucks.
Right. Yeah. They just know something in their brain is off. They don't really know what, because they're not professional musicians. They're there to enjoy the show. Fascinating. So one of the things I'm also curious about in sort of like the recording space, because like I hear all the time the different ways people record. Like I have a friend that recorded their entire album together in one track. I have other bands that record like a drum track and then the guitar track and then the, like all different locations. Does it really matter in your mind like how the recording process is done to produce the high quality sound, or is it just kind of depend on the band itself?
Oh, I've done every one of those, and then every other iteration thereof of dozens of albums in every way you can think. It does. Everybody is different. It's just like when you go to school and you learn that everybody learns differently. And some bands benefit from, and sometimes it's circumstances, just like we can't get together, right? Optimally, you have a great performing band, and they perform together, and they get like a nice scratch track on stage doing this killer performance, and then you start adding some layers on there, and you record the vocals separately so you can get, because condenser mics just don't work on stage with the drum set behind them. You do the minimal processing you possibly have to do. But you can get really darn good live recordings these days if you have a proper facility, which I want to have, and then go in and you can just retract the things that need to have an extra layer or two, like stereo width on guitars requires a second time through with guitars.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And like vocals, that vocal mic will pick up everything, so you need to redo your vocal because a lot of times you need perfect compression on a vocal, and if you have a drum set behind that vocalist, you can't do that kind of work. So get them in a separate place, and they redo their vocal, and then we get rid of that vocal mic from the track. And that was the original live performance that you kicked ass doing a live performance of. They call that scratch track. This is a classic way that you made an album. A classic way is you make a scratch track where the band would perform, and you get them feeling really good about themselves, and then you go back and redo the tracks one by one. But you can do anything you want these days because of technology. I did an album for somebody recently where the drummer was in Germany. He's in California. He needed a backup vocalist, so I had a backup vocalist here in Oregon, lay down some extra tracks, and that's how we made that album. And nobody even met each other. And it was one of the coolest sounding, at least a couple of songs I thought were some of the coolest sounding songs I've ever mixed, because it was just like this guy, he's a Juilliard graduate, and he played cello and guitar and sang, and had the drummer drum and had a backup vocalist from that I recorded. And so you can do it any way you want these days. But
so how does that feel though once you've completed that sort of recording process and it goes out and you know that your music is out there? Like as somebody that does the recording piece of it, like how does that make you feel when you have that, when you're able to sort of put a pin on it and now it's a thing?
Ooh. That I got a lot of mixed feelings because nothing's well. As to me, if the artist is happy, I'm super happy. If they're happy, if their fans are happy, then I'm happy. But also, I'm a perfectionist, so nothing is ever good enough. Because that's the deadlines are good for me, because whenever we've released anything, I was like, I needed more time, but I could have done a little more. But it feels amazing to be able to make that happen, and especially if it has an impact on people's lives. When I see that people enjoy the music and they're leaving comments online saying, I really love this song, especially if it's this song made an impact in my life or got me through something, that to me is like the religious side of it. It's like maybe you saved a life or something, like that's incredible. To be part of that is to be part of the circle of life, in my opinion, and to be part of humanity and the uplifting of humanity and being a little piece of that is really fulfilling.
And I love that piece too, because like you were saying, like that piece of like uplifting humanity, and music in itself is one of those unique things where it doesn't care who you are when you come through the door. Music is just there for your enjoyment, and it's there sort of like to be just exist. Yeah. I'm kind of curious. So with the venue piece of it itself, what's been the general sort of feedback that you're getting from musicians as you've gotten down this journey?
A huge need, definitely. I mean, I've personally called up like 40 different bands, and they all said, that sounds amazing, make it happen. You know, like we're in support of it, which is great because it's part of a business plan. I can bring it to a bank and say, there's local community support, and especially like credit unions and grants from Portland will be able to say, oh, you got community support, we can work with that more. So it's very important from a business aspect. But in all reality, it's just been a lot of people saying, that sounds like a great idea, I want to support it. And a lot of understanding of what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, there's a handful of little 150, 300 seaters out there that are like Mississippi Studios and stuff like that do a good job, but there aren't enough in one regard. And also, none of them really have like the three pillars I'm talking about, where it's like, or they're not as community driven. Like I don't care about money. That's the thing.
And that's a huge thing, though, right? Because, like, if you think about it, like, most of the venues, once you get to a certain size, it's more about the greed and the money than it is about the music. And one of the reasons I asked that question, because I wanted to highlight that, because, like, I have been flirting with this idea of something similar for quite some time. I just know that I am not capable of, my brain will not be able to manage a facility like that. Right? So I love this idea. Like, I'm here to support it in any way I can, because I think it's not only necessary and needed, but it's one of those things that could be successful. But what do you say to the naysayers out there? Because this is something that I've heard time and time again, right? If you can't, what was it the other day? Somebody said that, because I threw this idea out there, and they're like, well, you can't make it work because you're not going to be profit motivated. But don't you think the motivation of profit is the reason we kind of were in the mess that we're in now?
You do have to have a business mind, and you saw the business plan I sent you.
It's immaculate. Well done. Yeah.
So it's making money and profiting for yourself are two totally different things. You can have 100%. A plan. You can have a plan, and yes, there has to be expenditures, and yes, we got to ask for money, and yes, there has to be crowdfunding, and yes, we got to have banks on board, and yes, we got to have investors, and absolutely. I mean, I've definitely allotted every penny of I'm not going to throw a number out there, but it's a big number, right? We got to have a lot of money, because we can't compromise on anything. If you compromise on anything, then everything's compromised. Because I want to have a facility where we can really make an impact. You can't make an impact unless your quality is good. If your quality is not good, then you can't sell the products. You know, I'm not going to do a halfway measure. If I do a halfway measure, it's going to be something like cut out an entire piece of the puzzle and not compromise all three pieces of the puzzle until we can get enough community support to add the puzzle piece in there. You know, like maybe if I hit my head against the wall for so long I can't make a venue happen, it'll just be a place for recording and for teaching until that makes enough money to get a venue, or until maybe it's just a matter of the building's not available right now. But my goal is everything at once if I can get it, because it's something that I really feel like there's a need for, and I don't want to compromise on any of it.
And I don't think you have to, right? I think that you're in this unique position to where I think this is something that could definitely happen. Because, like, so I've talked to, I've done 126 episodes, well, it's 132 now, with the ones that haven't aired yet. And out of 132 episodes, every single musician I talk to says that this is the number one thing that is needed in this community. And that's across genres, right? That's blues musicians, that's rock musicians, that's horrorcore musicians. All of them are begging for a space that was built by musicians for musicians. They're begging for it because it's one of those things where unless you're a musician and you have that sort of experience, you're not going to be passionate about the music piece. And I think the first thing you have to be is passionate about the music piece.
that's my favorite experience about when I got into live engineering and bands. And I guess there's a lot of grumpy sound guys out there or something, but like I have a lot of passion for what I do. Like it is the most important thing in my life when I'm doing it, and I let the bands know like I am here for making your show sound amazing. Like whatever I can do, you cannot ask me to do enough. Like literally, I will never get annoyed at your request because I'm trying. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the sound on stage is a totally different thing than the sound out in the front of the house.
100%.
And your back of the house is just as important, because if the musicians can't hear and feel themselves, who cares how good the mix is out there? So a lot of it is, a lot of beginner engineers, they focus on the front of the house and they never care about, like I want to annoy the band. Like, do you feel what you're playing? Because if you don't feel it, then you don't feel it, and then you don't play it, and then they don't get to experience it because you're not experiencing it. So like that's super, super, super important. And I love that part of like I'm super passionate about making a band feel good and passionate about what they're doing, and taking that passion, putting in them, and the look on their eyes is insane when they see a guy saying that to them when they walk into a venue, which I've seen countless times. And you make the best friends because they get it. Because I'm a musician, I get it. That I've been in that position, and I know what a difference it makes when you can hear yourself with a good mix on stage. It's just like the crowd. If you don't hear yourself well, you don't feel it, and how are you gonna perform well?
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I say this through personal experience. Just so like this last week, I got on stage for the first time in quite some time, and the first song I sang was garbage because I couldn't hear myself. And I was like, oh, I'm off a key. I'm like, there's something missing. And I'm like, I can't hear myself to adjust to the guitar because the guitar was not exactly right. And so it was like, it ruined the first song. It really did.
And a lot of people will think, hear yourself volume. It's not about volume.
No.
It's about everything. It's just like an album. A lot of people, if there's some amateurs, there's 1,000 times more amateurs. They all understand what I'm talking about. When you start to make an album and you're an amateur, nothing sounds right. It's all the things that make that sound right that needs to go into the mix for the people on stage. When I do a stage mix, I'm running feathered compression, I'm running active equalization, I'm running EQs, I'm putting these stacked on top of each other with console distortion in a way to make it cut through and make them have like a certain texture, and to make them feel it, like that's important.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like then the reason I brought it up is because for the second song I moved over 2 feet and used a different microphone. Now the microphones were the same, everything out, but at that spot I could hear everything on stage. And the second song went exceptionally well compared to the first, because just like you have to get that dialed in. And it's so important for a band to be able to hear everything on stage that the audience is hearing. Because how can you adjust and react if you don't hear what the audience is hearing?
Yeah, I was working with the band Rhapsody in Red, which is an incredible Grateful Dead cover band. And we were having a bunch of issues with some feedback on stage, and for the first 2 songs, and then I knew what was wrong, and I just went up there and I moved the studio monitor. I moved a monitor about 2 feet away, 2 feet, and changed its angle by 15 degrees, and the whole show was straight from then on. Exactly. It's just that's part of like you can't teach that. You just gotta know it type of thing.
Yeah, and I had like it didn't even really occur or dawn on me until that moment. It was one of those things where it was like, aha. And I've had a lot of aha moments sort of like with music in the last year and a half. Like, for example, how important volume is. Because, like, a lot of people are under the idea or this misperception that loud. Like, you need some volume control in a live studio space, right? Because you want that depth and that richness. So, like, when you're talking to bands who are sort of, like, going to perform live on stage, what would you say to somebody about the importance of volume?
Volume seems a little misleading. To me, it's like clarity and depth.
That's fair.
You know?
I like that better. Yeah.
If you feel it, do you feel it, and can you hear everything? If you can feel it and you hear everything, then volume matters to the point of, are you able to not have a problem with bounce back in front of the house hitting your ears. Like you need to have the stage X amount of volume just to make sure that you're above that so that doesn't affect you. Because if you've ever heard yourself on delay,
Oh yeah.
your brain can't handle that. So that's the only thing you need volume for, and that's of course that's why in-ear monitors are so popular these days. It's the exact same thing, and that's a whole thing in and of itself because I can't hear what you're hearing, and that's why a AAA band that travels and does these huge shows that sell out 10,000 seat stadiums all have in-ear monitors, and they have an engineer that just does the monitor mix, and they have another engineer doing the front of the house mix, and they have another engineer doing a speaker mix. So like that's why those shows can sound any good at all. It's because that's people don't. A bar's not going to think the bar's going to say it's good enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
Nobody's going to think about that. I'm hoping for a venue where you don't have to have 3 engineers working together.
Yeah, because you want that venue that's the right size to where you only need like one person, and you're not dealing with like a stadium of 60,000, because that's just a different animal
Yeah,
altogether.
I can't go to those shows because, like I said, I can taste sound.
You know, it's interesting because like I've stopped going to the really big shows for that reason, and like I'll usually end up like getting overstimulated, and it's just like a sensory like nightmare, and that's like because like the big show that I love to go to is Tool in a Perfect Circle, because they are amazing at all of those aspects of it. Even those, though, after about an hour, my brain's like, I've had enough. In those large venues, it's just too much. It's too much echo. There's too much reverb. It's just like all the delay, and like the drum's a little off if you're like up in the nosebleed sections, and it's like, I want that venue to where everything is just crisp and just.
Once you get past 1,000 people, it's literally impossible because of physics.
Yeah.
There's no way you can't change physics, and physics says like a certain amount of distance, and these. When you're making an album, one of the first things I do is I phase align drums to make them sound full. And what phase align means is you got these overheads over the drum set, and they're at a certain amount of feet away from the drum. And if they're a certain amount of feet away from the snare, they act as a noise cancellation headphone, like I was talking about, because it takes a little time for them to travel, and that wave will be on a downward wave instead of an upward wave, and it will cancel out all these boldness in the snare. So the first thing I'll do is I'll zoom way in, and I'll try to line up all these waves together, and just that 8 feet right there made a huge difference in the fullness of the mix. Now we're talking a stadium that's 5,000 feet away or something, right? Or 2,000 feet away. There's just no way that anybody in that crowd is going to not have some kind of massive amount of cancellation, plus all the splash everywhere off of everything. And stadium seating is all this plastic seating, and like they've got all these different mediums that resonate different frequencies. And it's like, it's just impossible. So I want a small 1,000-person venue at the max.
And I guess the last thing I'll ask, because I'm curious now, is in terms of like sound and the sound waves, do different frequencies travel at different speeds? So like the guitar sound is going to maybe be a little bit different speed than like the drum sound, or
more importantly, they travel in different directions.
Oh, interesting.
Bass travels everywhere at once and all over the place. And you'll notice if you had music playing in this room, you put your head into the corner of the room, and that's why you got a bass trap, which is great. You're going to hear about 10 times more bass in that corner of the room. Whereas if that bass won't change very much if you move a speaker around. But the treble, if you move the speaker to where you are, you're going to hear the treble like crazy. And if you move the speaker away from you can hear almost no treble. The bass will stay almost constant. So it is kind of like it's a directional thing more than a speed thing. And that's what line arrays are all about. Is this array of speakers, and they kind of work, but you just can't beat physics.
So where can people go to find more information and support your efforts in this?
Well, at the moment, I want to be more prepared. I wanted to be more prepared for this. The reason why I'm here is because the idea had a lot of support from a couple of Facebook posts I made a week ago that got like 600 likes and tens of thousands of views all of a sudden, which I wasn't expecting as much community support. And then, somebody suggested you. And so all I have right now is my Facebook page, which I'm Vince Clifton, and they can connect with me and we can chat. And right now we want to find a perfect building So if somebody can find a building, and there's this thing called seismic upgrades, so not every building is going to work out because we're on a fault line, and to have Class A occupancy, which is required to be a venue, you have to have seismic upgrades. So maybe just I need to get as many building leads as possible to be able to make this venue happen. Something that could hold between 300 and 1,000 people would be great. And then we'll call the real estate agents and we'll talk about it. And just like community support, maybe by the time this podcast comes out, I'll be able to have some way that people can support, even just financially, possibly, just to get some licensing out of the way, and to have the ability to take time to do more investigations and things for myself, just to make this all happen, and just to show how much community support, like even like a sign-up sheet of like people saying they want this, to be able to bring it to Portland itself and say, hey, can I get an artist grant? Because they have those, if you have enough support from the local artist community, especially if you're an artist. And to be able to bring it to a bank and be able, hey, look how much the community is in support of this. Those are all possibly built-in customers. That's built-in money. The business will work. So definitely be looking at the Vince Clifton Facebook page, and I'll try to promote this podcast when it comes out too, and hopefully have like a video and a place to go by the time it comes out.
And I will most definitely sign that petition, my friend.
Appreciate that.
Like this is just one of those things where I really hope this takes off.
Me too.
Anything we can do to support that, we will do. Vince, thank you so much. And I'll end the podcast the way I always end the podcast, folks. Be kind. We all live on the same planet. We breathe the same air. And this world would just be a much better place if we treated everybody with kindness and respect.